Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rome.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stunned the entire world with evidence that Iran continues to pursue its nuclear weapons program from a clandestine atomic warehouse in Tehran. The Israeli leader informed the UN General Assembly that the rogue Islamic Republic is still trying to obtain nuclear weapons despite its 2015 accord with world powers to curb its program in exchange for relief from economic sanctions. Israel repeatedly lobbied against the Obama-brokered agreement, which is now commonly known as the worst deal in history. Netanyahu presented the United Nations with aerial photographs which revealed what Israeli intelligence services have identified as a site concealing nuclear-related material. The Israeli premier called on the International Atomic Energy Agency to carry out immediate inspections at the location. The head of the nuclear watchdog organization responded by saying they had been to all the sites and locations in Iran which it needed to visit. Netanyahu wasted no time in refuting the IAEA claim, insisting that it had not checked the Iranian site he exposed.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed that his nation's delivery of the S-300 surface-to-air missile system to Syria has already begun, despite Israeli and American objections. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized the Kremlin for supplying the advanced anti-aircraft system to Damascus as irresponsible. Jerusalem is concerned that the S-300s will obstruct its aerial strikes against Iranian arms shipments to Hezbollah. Moscow's sudden decision to deliver the weapon system came after the Syrian military mistakenly downed a Russian plane following an Israeli mission in the area.
U.S. President Donald Trump said it is still his dream to make a peace deal between Israel and the Arabs before the end of his first term in office. His comments came during a recent meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in New York. However, the Palestinian leadership continues to boycott the United States, and a senior PA official has reiterated that Ramallah has no intention of engaging with Washington. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas is demanding that the U.S. reverse its recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital and immediately reinstate its financial support to the corrupt institutions that fund the Palestinian Authority. The Arabs have doubled down on their illegitimate claim to the land of Israel and are insisting that their Judenrein state be created in the biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria, with the holy city of Jerusalem as their capital.
Iran fired missiles at militants in Syria in retaliation for the September 22nd attack on its own soil. Tehran has accused U.S.-backed Gulf Arab states of carrying out the shootings at a military parade that killed 25 people, nearly half of whom were Revolutionary Guards members. A map shown on state television pinpointed western Iran as the launch site and southeast Syria as the target. A number of opposition leaders were killed in the strike, which also destroyed supplies and infrastructure. The missiles were inscribed with the popular Iranian slogans of "Death to America" and "Death to Israel."
The Israeli military has released video footage and photos of Hezbollah rocket building sites in Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the images are evidence of Iranian involvement in the construction of secret terrorist sites where inaccurate projectiles are converted into precision-guided missiles capable of striking targets deep inside the Jewish state. The clip detailed the transfer of the missile project to a neighborhood in the heart of Beirut. Israeli security officials said the Shiite terrorists are fully aware of the extent to which such a deployment jeopardizes the city's civilian population.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu discussed regional developments with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi when both leaders were in the U.S. to address the UN General Assembly. Netanyahu and Sisi met in public for the first time in 2017 and reportedly held a secret summit this past May to discuss a truce in neighboring Gaza, which is under tight Israeli and Egyptian border restrictions. Cairo has been working to broker a long-term ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
Muslim terrorists continue to pelt IDF troops with explosive devices during violent riots along the border with Gaza. Israeli Army sappers safely dismantled over 100 firebombs and grenades that were hurled at IDF troops over the weekend. Palestinians stage violent demonstrations as a cover for terrorists attempting to infiltrate across the border into Israel. In addition, Gaza-based terrorists continue to send dozens of makeshift bombs attached to balloons and kites, hoping to burn as much of Israel as they can. Thousands of acres of the Jewish state have been destroyed, and firefighters as well as local volunteers work around the clock to extinguish the flames. Israel blames the Islamist Hamas rulers of the enclave for deliberately provoking the violence.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinians suddenly withdrew at least 10 of its senior international staff from Gaza. The group was relocated to safety in Israel, which opened a closed border crossing to facilitate the emergency rescue mission. The transfer came in response to violence and threats from local Arab residents and UNRWA employees who have become increasingly infuriated over pending job cuts. The agency has faced a financial crisis since the halt of American financial aid in August. U.S. President Trump stopped the flow of millions of tax dollars after he said that UNRWA was an irredeemingly flawed operation that only perpetuated the refugee problem as well as the Israeli-Arab conflict. The UN has called on Gaza authorities to now provide effective protection of its facilities and the 6 employees who are believed to remain behind in the lawless territory.
Israel's National Counterterrorism Bureau has exposed infrastructure used throughout Gaza, Judea, and Samaria to finance Hamas. The plot was uncovered in a joint mission launched by the Army, the Shin Bet Security Service, and the Tax Authority. Thousands of dollars of textile products were being imported into the Gaza Strip, then sold to fund hostile terrorist activity and provide salaries for Hamas operatives. Israeli customs officials confiscated containers of suspect materials under administrative seizure orders to break up the illegal operation.
Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman announced that Israel is prepared to reopen the Quneitra crossing into the Syrian side of the Golan Heights now that Damascus has regained control of the area from rebel forces. The defense chief said that the UN Disengagement Observer Force, known as UNDOF, has already resumed operations on the Israeli side of the frontier, as well as patrols with the assistance of the IDF. UNDOF was established in 1974 after the Yom Kippur War to monitor a demilitarized zone between the two countries, but that mission was disrupted by Syria's civil war. In the past, traffic through Quneitra mainly comprised shipments into Syria of apples grown by Druze farmers on the Israeli Golan, as well as the entry of brides for partners on both sides of the armistice line.
In other news, the recent visit of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to Germany, aimed at repairing ties between the two countries, backfired in the wake of his regime's crackdown on democracy. Thousands of protesters lined the streets taken by Erdogan's convoy and denounced him as a dictator and a despot. Chancellor Angela Merkel insisted Erdogan release German citizens being held as political prisoners in Turkey, while Erdogan demanded that Berlin turn over several journalists and critics of his regime based in Germany. One reporter was forcibly removed from a joint media conference for loudly objecting to Ankara's violation of press freedom. Merkel later refused to attend a state dinner for the Turkish strongman, as did the majority of lawmakers and others on the guest list.
An Israeli group called Krembo Wings has been awarded special advisor status to the United Nations for its work integrating disabled children with their able-bodied peers. Each week, nationwide branches of the NGO welcome thousands of young people between the ages of 7 to 22 from all cultural, religious, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Activities include group games, arts and crafts, music, and much more. Trained youth counselors run the sessions, which are designed to give the participants a chance to have fun, make friends, expand their social skills, and develop self-confidence. Specially adapted transportation is also provided so that no child is denied the chance to take part. A faith-based initiative is being credited with tripling the number of live kidney transplants performed in Israel. The Matnat Chaim NGO, meaning Gift of Life, launched a very special outreach program in 2009, specifically aimed at the Orthodox Jewish community, which firmly believes in the importance of pikuach nefesh, or the preservation of human life. Potential donors are educated about both the benefits and the risks of such altruistic actions. They're also guided through the national health system and directed to physicians with expertise in the field. All those efforts are yielding phenomenal success. The number of live kidney donors jumped from 78 in 2010 to 222 in 2016, with a 55% majority having been referred by Matnat Chaim. Altogether, the Gift of Life group has more than earned its name by helping to facilitate 494 transplants to patients who could not have lived without them.
A one-of-a-kind, spectacular new exhibit is about to open, featuring crystal-like sculptures formed at the lowest point on the planet. Israeli artist Sigalit Landau used the same high salinity of the Dead Sea that makes aquatic life impossible to create a collection of frozen works that seem to come straight out of a fairy tale. Anything submerged in the mineral-rich waters accumulates layer upon layer of salt over time. Landau's whimsical pieces include musical instruments, ballerina slippers, and even a tutu that now weighs over 400 pounds. The fantastical display will take center stage at the Museum of Modern Art in Salzburg, Austria next year as part of a project appropriately entitled Salt Years.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful sunny day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Sarah Tuttle Singer. She is the author of Jerusalem Drawn and Quartered. Sarah, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tell our viewers a little about the new book, Jerusalem Drawn and Quartered.
Oh, man. Jerusalem Drawn and Quartered is a love story, and it's a love story about living literally right over there, inside the walls of the old city, and not just in one specific location, but in several. Jerusalem's divided into 4 quarters. There's the Christian quarter, Armenian, Muslim, and Jewish quarter. And I wanted to experience all of them and get to know the different people who are living in each of the communities and overcome some of my own fears and my own, my own trepidation, and see what it's actually like to measure time in Sabbath candles or call to prayer or the church bells, and just be as much a part of each community as possible.
Well, the Old City is extremely fascinating because it's such a small place, yet you do have 4 unique quarters. But tell us some about the experience of living in each one.
First of all, being in Jerusalem it's humbling, it's also complicated. I mean, this is the hottest piece of spiritual real estate in the world, and you're looking at it right now, right behind me. And it's a place that people have thought and dreamed and struggled and prayed over for millennia. But it's also it's an ordinary city too. And even though it's cleaved into these different sections, they're just ordinary people. And you know, the plumbing leaks and the roof leaks, and it's cold in the winter and it's hot in the summer, and everyone, just buys their eggs and their bread and their hummus from the same place and has gripes about the weather and about, the political situation at times. But people can also be really good neighbors too. And being there and spending time in these different locations and getting to hear the stories of the different people who are living there, whether it's a Palestinian Muslim or an ultra-Orthodox Jew or a nun or a priest or just some backpacker who never left and stays there after 60 years. It's one of those things where worlds collide, and it's humbling and really special. And I hope other people will get a chance to do something like that.
Well, our viewers are mostly Christians. They come from a Christian background. What was the most interesting thing about living in the Christian quarter?
I love faith. I mean, I'm Jewish, and I love being a Jew, but I also love watching people from different religions pray. And when you see that light shining in their eyes, it's really something very special, and it can be in everyone. And so I liked watching that, and I liked connecting to people who are having a connection with God. And I loved going to Church of the Holy Sepulchre after it was supposed to be closed, when they would have these very late night masses. And again, even though I'm not a Christian, faith is a universal language, and love is a universal language, and faith and love in God or in some sort of higher power energy that's leading you and directing you and guiding you for good, that's something that can really unify. And so I loved those kind of moments.
Well, you're Jewish, but you're a secular Jew, and you lived in the Jewish quarter of the old city, which is mostly Orthodox. How was that for you in that experience?
Well, I'm not a secular Jew, actually. I mean, it depends on how you want to look at what it means to be a secular Jew. Most secular Jews don't believe in God, and I do. And I may not be known as a Torah Jew or an Orthodox Jew, but I have deep faith, and I love tradition, and I grew up in a family that kept kosher and kept Shabbat, and so that's been very much a part of my experience. But being in the more traditionally Jewish section of Jerusalem in the Old City, in the Jewish quarter, was also eye-opening. But it was like coming home to your grandmother's table and smelling chicken soup and feeling that sense of warmth and familiarity and love and tradition, and it was wonderful. But that said, I didn't change who I was in any of the quarters. I walked around pretty much like this. If I went into a prayer space, a church or a mosque or a synagogue, then of course I would cover up. If I went into someone's home and they were more observant, I would cover up too. But out in the streets, I was just me and learning and living.
Also being Jewish, it must have been interesting living in the Arab quarter. Can you tell us a little about that? How was that experience?
You know, the Muslim quarter is the largest quarter in the Old City, and it's a place that can be fraught with tension. And there is sometimes, you know, real anger there coming from the people who are living there. And there can be tension between Palestinians and Israelis, and I make no secret of it. I'm an Israeli, I am a Zionist, I'm a Jew. All of those things are part of my identity. I'm also an American, and I'm also a woman and a mother. But I found that even during times of tension, when things were complicated and fraught, when you look people in the eye and you tell the truth about who you are, they're likely to do the same. And one conversation may not solve the crisis here and alleviate the tensions between Jews and Muslims, but if one conversation can lead to a second and a third and a fourth, that's the beginning for a friendship. And we may never see eye to eye, but at least we see the humanity in one another, and that's a blessing.
Now, there's a lot of information about the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter, but not many people know about the Armenian quarter. What was unique about that experience?
About the Armenian quarter, it's the smallest of the quarters. It's beautiful. If you want to see some gorgeous mosaics, you got to check it out. The community in the Armenian quarter is it's very interesting. Some of them came during the time of the Crusades. The Armenian Christian community is one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, and they came to Jerusalem about 1,000 years ago. But then there's another part of the Armenian quarter that came later, after the genocide in 1916. And they were fleeing the Turks, and those who survived came to Jerusalem and lived where there was already, you know, a safe haven. But, you know, one of the things that really struck me is how little interaction there is between the different quarters, and until, you know, one day there was an issue with the municipality where the road between the Armenian quarter and the Jewish quarter needed to be paved. The problem is if you pave it, you're locking off the street, and so people can't get ambulances if women go into labor, or if older people go into cardiac arrest. And so for the first time, really maybe in forever, the Jewish quarter and the Armenian quarter got to know one another and got together. But it became readily apparent that there was a lot of fear in the Armenian quarter of the different communities, and that's why I think it's so important for us to meet our neighbors and get to know one another and try to bridge those divides. But I mean, all the quarters are fascinating and special, and all have their unique character.
Sarah, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Love. It all comes down to love. And yes, there are reasons to be wary and to be suspicious at times, but for the most part, people are really good. And if we take the time to get to know one another, we alleviate that fear, we alleviate the hate, and we can move forward towards some kind of reconciliation where we can truly be good neighbors side by side together.
Thanks, Sarah, for being on the show. And thanks for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren HaYesod United Israel Appeal. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. After 2,000 years, we found the descendants of the lost tribe of Dan. Please help us welcome our brothers and sisters back home. God bless you from Jerusalem.
He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Isaiah 11:12.
Christians and Jews have been bearing witness to the miraculous fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Since the reestablishment of the State of Israel in 1948, the ingathering of the Jewish people to the Holy Land has unfolded before our very eyes. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Isaiah 43:5. Today, Keren HaYesod has been tasked with completing one of the greatest examples of the fulfillment of this prophecy, the Aliyah of the Ethiopian Jews, the descendants of the tribe of Dan. On October 29, 2012, we were able to bring 250 new immigrants from Ethiopia to Israel. Keren HaYesod is not only tasked with paying the costs of their flights and accommodations, but also with their absorption into Israeli society. There are still around 2,000 Ethiopian Jews who pray daily to come back to the land of Israel, and we need your help to bring them home. We are reaching out to our Christian brothers and sisters and asking you to join us. In this new century, as in the old, Christians must reach out to the Jewish people and do their part to advance the fulfillment of the prophecy and defend the covenant. Help us bring the children of Israel back to the land of Israel. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Genesis 12:3.
2,800 שנה של גלות. איך פערים אדירים בגיאוגרפיה, בציוויליזציה, לא יכולים להחליש את הכמיהה הזו, שהביאה כולנו לישראל, והיום גם אתם בבית. ברוכים הבאים.
בכל פעם שנפרדנו, הייתי אומר לכם שיגיע הרגע וניפגש בארץ ישראל. אחיי ואחיותיי, הרגע הגיע. מעומק ליבי אני מאחל לכם ברוכים הבאים למולדת. Come join Keren HaYesod in fulfilling biblical prophecy. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
With the outbreak of the Syrian civil war in 2011, the withdrawal of American interest in that civil war, European interest in that civil war, a vacuum was created. And the vacuum filled up. It filled up with Russians, of course, but most dangerously, the vacuum was filled with Iranians. Syria, for Iran, is crucial. Iran has already taken over Lebanon. Lebanon is basically a province of Iran. Iran has basically taken over Iraq, much of Yemen, parts of the Gaza Strip. Iran is surrounding us on all sides. But directly to the north of us, on a very crucial and exposed border, is the Syrian border. And Syria is essential for Iran's quest for regional domination. Unlike Lebanon, unlike Iraq or Yemen, there are no Shiites in Syria. And so what is Iran doing? It is ethnically cleansing Syria of Sunni Arabs. It's kicking them out. They're going to Europe, they're going to the West. And Iran is replacing those Sunni Arabs with Shiite militiamen from as far away as Pakistan and Afghanistan, settling them in former Sunni neighborhoods. The idea is to transform Syria as well into an Iranian province, and then to militarize Syria. Iran is assiduously building bases, airstrips. It wants to build a port on the Mediterranean for nuclear submarines. All this with one goal: surrounding Israel on all sides, transforming the Golan Heights, that sensitive border, into an active military front against us, confronting us with missiles based in Syria, with terrorists based in Syria. And for this reason, Israel has drawn red lines. We will not allow Iran to establish bases, ports, or airstrips in Syria. We will stop them. And for that reason, we deeply appreciate the American administration's position that Iran must completely withdraw from Syria and restore the quiet on Israel's northern border.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Keren Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.